I have been teetotal my whole life, which for someone who works in TV is a complete contradiction. We know heavy drinking is linked to health complications and social problems, yet it's an area politicians are petrified of even attempting to address. I believe it's time they tackle our obsession with alcohol. Many argue that a pint of beer or a bottle of wine is part of our culture. Well, so was smoking. And as controversial as the smoking ban was, we can't deny the shift in image of smokers from cool cat to outsider. Of course, drinking in public doesn't have the same impact as passive smoking, but it still affects us through increased strain on the NHS or the destruction of families caused from addiction. Our acceptance of drinking alcohol as an integral part of our culture makes it easier for us to slip into excess. So, as a teetotaler, I know this is not going to be popular, but I'm calling time on the British obsession with drinking.
No, I just have to say to you, some of the best times of my life have been spent in bars, in clubs, in pubs, drinking wine and Prosecco with my friends. And I don't ever want it to become socially acceptable. And yes, I get the fact that you know, being in a drunken stupor is not a good place to be. And I get the fact if you drink too much, it's not good for you. But I don't want drinking to become socially acceptable because it isn't like smoking in the sense if you're having a quiet drink in a bar or whatever, you're not affecting everyone around unless you're shouting the odds and punching people, which most people aren't. And that's a fact. And, you know, people keep on saying there's this trend now amongst young people that they think drinking is stupid. You know, last weekend, the sun came out for the first time and all you could see all over London were people on the streets drinking, having a good time. My supermarket was empty of rosé in the first hour of opening.
That was just you,
that was just me. But there was a queue in Majestic at 10 o'clock last Saturday morning. People are not... But, and we have to stop thinking that, you know, I, like you, thought drinking was a strain on the NHS. You know, people and the problems related to it. And I just read a report from the Institute of Economic Affairs in 2017. Listen to this. Government spends $4 billion a year on alcohol-related problems and illnesses, so like healthcare, policing, criminal activities. Yep. They make in taxes $10+ billion. Yeah. So we're subsidising us drinkers, teetotalers like you, in society. And actually the same with smokers. You know, they subsidise the economy to the tune of $14 billion. That's... So that rather than being a drain, they're contributing.
No, but are we saying that because of money, it's worth the health problems that it's causing? And also, just to be clear, I'm not in any way saying we need to ban drinking. You know, I'm not for prohibition or anything like that. All I'm saying is that I think British culture, having lived in America, where people drink, but not to the same degree as Brits. So, i.e. in America, if you're having a proper drink at lunch, people look at you as if you're weird.
If you ask for a bottle of wine,
they're like, what?
Can I have a bottle of wine? And she wanted a glass, I want a bottle. She wanted a bottle?
Oh, yeah, a bottle, a whole bottle. And I just think that actually, if there's a way to change behaviour so that people drink in moderation and we don't have the same sort of excessive behaviour.
But most people do drink in moderation. And I actually think drinking when you're...
No, but a lot of people look at moderation as quite large numbers in terms of what is considered the sort of healthy, safe way to drink.
I did look at these figures and said, like, 18 drinks a week and cut 5 years
off your life.
So you're in big trouble.
Yeah, you're in big trouble. You're off. Go on, Michelle.
I drink.
I know you do.
I drink.
It's a revelation.
I drink. That's something we don't know. I drink too much and it makes me uncomfortable. And I drink too much because that is the social circle that I am in. If I go and meet my friends, we go to the pub, or we go for dinner and we drink wine, or if I go and have a meeting in the afternoon, we have a glass of wine or whatever it is. But I do actually think...
And there's pressure on you. If you say, oh, I don't fancy drinking today, your friends will put pressure on you to drink. Go on, have a drink, have a drink.
But you're tough, you can say no.
I can. I very rarely, but but I think that there is this big movement, because if I show you... So this is a clip of me. I'm the one in the pink wig.
All right.
So let me see.
Oh, my gosh.
So, let me explain what's going on there.
Well, we can
I don't think you need any explanation. Is that right-wing Bible class you go to all the time?
That was approximately 2 weeks ago.
Oh, my God.
That was at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, no.
And it was a sober rave. No drink.
Oh, wow.
No drugs.
Oh, my goodness.
Everything was 100% clean, and it's this new movement. You go to the nightclub, it was the Ministry of Sound.
Did they invite you?
No,
You
you
never
buy a
get invited
ticket.
anyway.
But you buy a ticket. It starts at 6:30 in the morning, and I turned up to this event. I fancy dressed and all the rest of it, and I turned up. As soon as I heard the DJ, I was like, right, where's the bar? Even though it was 7, because it's an instinctive thing in your head. Where's this music? And actually, there is no bar. They have green juices, they have smoothies, they have meditation, they have yoga, they have water. And now let me tell you, because I always thought to dance and all the rest of it, I needed to be drunk.
Yeah.
I spent 4 hours on the stage. I was on my own dancing.
Having
I had
great
the time
and you
of my
remembered
life.
it.
And I remembered it.
You remembered
And I
it.
went to work later on in the morning. I was all excited and pumped up. I loved it.
I think
Go on, Greg.
I agree with you to an extent.
Okay, all right.
In the sense that, I mean, I look back to my father's generation. I mean, my father, we used to get a bottle of gin at Christmas, and the next Christmas, it was still the same bottle of gin. You know? And I look at my generation, and that's not what happens.
No.
I mean, people have drunk a lot more. I was in Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and in Sweden it's quite hard, outside of bars, it's quite hard to buy alcohol. You go to alcohol shops, and that's it. And that was a policy put in by the Swedish government.
Right.
To actually, and it has reduced people's drinking alcohol.
Consumption.
I mean, I think the figure shows that there's about 19%, I think, who are like you, who never drink of this country.
Yeah.
So 80% do.
Yes.
Basically.
And of that 80%, probably, I'd be interested to see how many of that 80% drink a lot.
And actually, what is interesting about your comparison with smoking, I mean, smoking has come way... I mean, we're down to 20% smoking now, whereas at one time... I mean, you were in the newspaper.
Oh, everybody.
Everybody smoked.
Great fug would hang over.
Well, you couldn't see across the news desk, could you, because of the amount of smoke coming out. And therefore, where I agree with you a bit is that we've probably got to change the balance.
Yes.
And encourage...
But what do you want to do in practical terms?
Yes.
What is
well,
it you...
I think in practical terms, so one of the first things would be to change what is seen as socially acceptable. So, i.e., if you look at the smoking ban, just changing legislation so that it just was... You weren't able to smoke inside anymore. Made
so what,
it...
you can't drink inside?
No, I'm not saying you can't drink inside anymore, but I think something like what Greg just talked about with the Swedish model, in terms of making it harder to buy alcohol, because actually that's how the majority of people get alcohol in this country, is that they buy it themselves as opposed to sort of wholesale.
The trouble is, the whole of the British social life has been
and I think that needs to change.
Well, I don't know if it does, because providing you're responsible with it and providing you're not in a stupor every
Okay,
day
can I just tiny stat? So from 2015 to 2016, there were 1.1 million hospital admissions related to alcohol consumption, and that's up 4% from the year before. So,
but we know where that's coming from. That's young kids on a Friday and Saturday night in towns and cities.
But if we changed what was socially acceptable, they would change. You wouldn't have as much of that. I'm using the American example.
Stuff like I've just been to, like that event.
It's great.
There's more and more of those kind of things.
And millennials are changing. They want coffee shops and juice bars. Go on, you.
Well, I was just...
As someone who does drink 18...
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. I don't count. I lost count. No, I tell you what I always... I once had a medical, and the guy asked me, the doctor said, you know, how much do you drink? So I told him, he said, well, my maximum, as long as you don't drink as much as your doctor, you're probably going to be all right, and you're not drinking as much as me. Thank you, doctor, I'll stay with you. But thousands of people get admitted to hospital with fishing injuries. Right? We're not going to ban fishing, are we? No. So why can't we let this, just because the hospital admissions, your argument's just false.
But we can regulate.
Loads of blokes break their leg playing football on a Sunday afternoon on the marshes. We're not going to stop.
Socially unacceptable. It's lovely having a drink.
There is a long-term problem of sclerosis and the rest. I mean, there is quite clearly something has changed.
Something's got to give.
And somehow, how do you guide a society back a bit the other way without becoming authoritarian and saying, you are not allowed to do this?
Yeah, and can I give you an alternative? Then give us that story to lift the mood. So I want to show you a quick clip of founder of Seedlip, a guy called Ben Branson, and this is a new distilled non-alcoholic spirit. So you feel like you're drinking, but you're not. Let's have a look.
We're really seeing a change, both in the way that bars, restaurants and the hotel industry are approaching their non-alcoholic cocktail programs, but also in the way that consumers and the public are responding to this and actually demanding better options, because for whatever reason they're not drinking, and actually they want something that's full of flavour.
I attempted dry January, and when I said at the bar, look, have you got anything that'll make me feel like I'm drinking, they suggested this product.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be mean, I'm sure many people like it, but to me, I felt like I was drinking Pop Puree water. Oh. It wasn't, it was not for me.
How long did your dry January
last? 4 days.
Well done.
Yeah,
30 years ago, when I was here with a load of other blokes setting up Sky News, I won't name him, but a very, very senior bloke who drank really heavy, put me to shame, suddenly decided he'd become teetotal. After a few months, I said to him, so what's it like? How's it come? And he said, well, I'll tell you what I've learned. There are 2 halves to news at 10. Every night he fell asleep at 10:15.